Welcome to the additional video with Module 5 of Action Research, where I'm going to talk about Section 4 of the Action Research Proposal, the awesome section. Hopefully, this will be as helpful as the last 3 weeks have been with these. But I would say take a moment here, pause and ponder. You are way closer to the end of this Action Research Proposal than you think. Section 5 is the easiest, and in theory, it's supposed to basically write itself. So get ready to feel some pressure off your shoulders here once you're done with this one. Some greater confidence in completed sections, and like I said, Section 5 is very much a summary. It's very much stuff that hopefully has been brewing up here for several weeks. So all you should have left after Section 5 writing itself is assembling the pieces for the poster presentation. I think it's going to come together great for you. I can't wait to see. Okay, so regarding Section 4, general advice. This is the section for discussing the nature of the data that you anticipate that you'll collect and to propose the way or ways in which you will analyze that data. Remember to keep using that third-person academic voice in this section, especially. This is especially important when we keep in mind that overarching APA rule, right? We foreground the research and not the researcher, right? So with that logic, that APA style manual logic in mind, right? Make sure to keep the data, the study, the research subjects, etc., as your active subjects, and avoid that first-person language. Keep using that academic third-person voice of the profession, right? Just like with the last section, I think the cure for what makes this one seem difficult: let your thoughts breathe. Read a paragraph, read a section out loud. Ask yourself, did I say that clearly enough? Did I say that as clear as it is in my mind, or as clear as it would need to be for somebody else to understand? And inject more detail when necessary, right? Make sure that you are reaching out via that A-State email address to our academic assistant or to me. Either one of us, we can chat with you about this. We can answer questions to get through the roadblocks and get through the bumps in the road. Well, as I keep saying, writing being a knowledge constructing process takes yet another very interesting twist in this section, right? You'll be shifting that thinking a lot from what you propose to do methodologically in the previous section to more of a focus on predicted or projected data and proposed types of analysis, right? First steps, like before, keep that Blackboard posting in mind. You might have had some thoughts in that post regarding types of data and types of analysis that are that seed, right, that you might use. You may not have written that post in full academic language, but you can always revise it. Most importantly, revisit last section. Revisit Section 3. Let it re-resonate with you. There's some brief parts in Section 3 that would have hinted at some of your thoughts for proposed data analysis as a natural flow of your study design. Now, maybe you have some thoughts that have changed. That's okay, but hopefully there are some seeds there. Don't discount the seeds right there. If this seems challenging, like the last section, don't worry. It's what the template file is for. It's set up for you. It's why we had the karate reading as well. The study design, right? The way that we piece together study design, from epistemology to the specific methodological tools, right? That dictates the structure, sometimes even the destiny of the study. Lots of nuggets in chapters 4 and 5 from the previous video this week, keep in mind. Okay, so my same reminders I've had every week, right? The handout and the rubric, which are in the course Action Research Proposal and Poster Presentation Resources folder. Make sure you've accessed those. Don't forget to download and install Microsoft Word if you haven't already. I hope you all have by now. Those instructions are still there at the bottom of the announcements when you scroll down to the beginning. Make sure to use that template file. It's what it's for. Don't copy and paste material from another source, right? Erroneous data, changes in font, changes in spacing will come along for the ride. Just click in that template and start typing in Microsoft Word and you are good to go. Again, read and trust the handout. Keep the rubric in mind. Use the template file. These documents are there for you, right? But also, as I've said each week, listen to yourself, your beliefs about where knowledge comes from, your interests in your views on research methodology, and your preferences for types of data, because those voices inside you will guide you in the research process. Tidbits from the handout. Again, each section will be approximately 2 pages, not counting the title page and references page, but more important than the minimal number of pages is the quality of engagement with the action research process. Right? So specifically, Section 4, do with Module 5. You can call that section Findings or Study Results or Results in Action. There are different versions of exactly how you can title this section. I'm a fan of findings of the study. I'm kind of boring with that, I guess. So the handout mentions data analysis, and that is actually split in the template file, which I'll clarify a little bit more. But before you begin data analysis, a tip: return to your research questions. Right, take a plausible trip through the anticipated data. Think about, simulate your study in your mind, right, in your mind's eye. Make sure to describe types of anticipated raw data. Perhaps construct a visual representation of, if you have multiple types of data, how to organize it. Right, findings are efficiently articulate what you think the possible findings of the study may be, which might not necessarily be answers to the research questions, but where do you think the data would take you? Known limitations or future directions. There may not be major limitations or future directions. It all depends on your study, but what I would say is be humble, be pragmatic, and ask yourself, how might the study fall short? Not because it's a flaw in your design, but because research and knowledge construction is really bigger than all of us. All we do is just tackle just a tiny little shred of it, right? What I think does honor to our contribution to research is when our work unlocks new questions and sets the stage for further work, right? In other words, we start blazing a trail, others follow. Let's put this more in the context of the template file itself, right? This, like Section 3, the template file, is very, very much more specific. It's much more similar in experience to Section 3, much more different than Section 2. So at this point, note there is a revised version of the Section 4 template on Blackboard. You'll see that I've got revised in the title of it because I wanted to separate out that thinking the data. I thought that would be a little bit easier for you. I thought it would make a little bit more sense. First talk about the data and then what you're going to do with it. I think splitting that up it'll make Section 4 a little bit more clear overall, I think. As with Section 3, this one does not have an introduction. It's not as necessary, I don't think, with the shortened kind of version of our proposal sections. You're still welcome to add one, just don't displace more critical content when you do, right? Okay, so study data. This is a section for describing the type or types of data that you anticipate collecting in your proposed study. One narrative paragraph may be all that's necessary for you to describe your one type of data. Or maybe you'll have two paragraphs each talking about a type of data. A very long paragraph talking about 2 types of data. It all depends on how you set that up. If you have multiple forms of data, you might take a second to think about the pros and cons of inserting some additional level 2 headings to further break that down and organize those paragraphs a little bit. The data analysis section is your section for telling the possible story of your data, so to speak, right? Predicting. Try to foresee the future. In this section, you'll describe what you propose to do with the type or types of data that you mentioned collecting, again, in your methodology, in your methods section. But reiterate it. And this section will vary a little bit from candidate to candidate, from study to study. It depends on your chosen study design, your chosen methodology, and your types of data. Ultimately, make sure that the proposed analysis that you have is the right match for the data you collected, and it would be a sensible approach considering the chosen study design and methodology. It should be a proper fit, and I really do think the nuggets are there in chapters 4 and 5 for this week to really guide you in putting that match together. The findings section of this, it's meant to be a tidy, focused section that explicitly states what you think ultimately the data will reveal. This would obviously be a much more richly articulated section if you had actually deployed the study and collected your data and actually analyzed the data of the proposed study. But for the purpose of this exercise, you can use that section to talk about, to summarize, here is the anticipated findings of this study. Very likely would be, hopefully would be, may very well be. Use very pragmatic language, right? But try to be focused and succinct in that section. Anticipated findings in the context of how they might serve to improve or better inform the field of teaching and literacy, right? Find the known limitations future research section. You could consider it optional, but again, I strongly recommend and encourage you to include it. Here you can state ways your inquiry might be limiting. You feel that as one researcher you can only do so much, and that's totally understandable. That's human. But what options for further inquiry does your study open up? You could possibly add a conclusion section as well in order to reiterate, summarize the forms of data collected, proposed analysis, projected findings, and hint at the recommendations to the field that are going to be articulated in the final section to come. And then if you have any references from sections 1, 2, or 3, carry them forward into this one as well. And don't forget about the APA citation examples handout, further ways to quote and mix up in your narrative if you need to. That was definitely, I think, more important for section 2, maybe section 3, as is with this one. Just like previous weeks, right? Follow steps in the module activities. Once you've completed the BioSig ID in module 4, the activities folder, which has that 4.3 submission link, will appear. Shout out videos will continue. Hope you're enjoying those. I'm having fun doing them. They do have experience a little bit of a delay, obviously, because the grading has to occur and then they come in late in the week, right? But still getting those done. And please be reaching out by your A-State email with your thoughts, with your questions, with your requests for an office phone chat. Whatever I can do to help. Wolves up. We'll see you in Module 6.